Hello there. So, subject today is energy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you my personal story about how this went for me. And then I want to broaden it right out so you can see how it's universally applicable. So my story with energy began when I got a mysterious illness a long time ago, back in 1990. And it actually meant that I was unable to work, and I pretty much lost all my functioning abilities. And it was a long road, and I got a diagnosis after a year, but it wasn't until much later that I began to realise that everything that I'd learnt about what was going on for me was completely not as it seems. So it seemed as if my issue was that I was constantly tired because of being depleted energetically. In other words, lacking energy. This is how it appeared. And the illness I had the label of ME, which is myalgic encephalomyelitis. And what that actually meant for me in my day-to-day life, it meant that if I wasn't very careful, I would find myself exhausted to such a point that I could scarcely move. And sometimes I actually couldn't move at all. And there were times it was incredibly inconvenient. I can remember a couple of occasions, once having had a conversation with a couple of people that got quite emotional, and as I was walking down the street after having left their house, I suddenly had to grab onto this wall because I just felt so faint and I felt I was going to collapse. And then a few years later I found myself in a different part of the country, up in the north of England in York, and it happened a few times as I got so depleted of energy that I actually had to lie down on the street exactly where I was standing so I didn't actually fall down, and I'd have to lie there for up to half an hour. And because this was up north in England, it was really problematic, because in the north of England people are much more likely to show that they care, and I'd be lying on the pavement and people would be seeing me there, and they'd go up to me and ask me how I was doing, and am I all right, and I had too much to drink, and all these kind of questions. Was actually, the point is, I was in a state of collapse and I needed just to be left alone to recover. So it was really difficult when it happened up north. Bless them. So for a long time, all the way through until 2011, I was actually completely misdirected about what was going on, because that's how it was explained to me. The problem is you've got chronic fatigue, you're tired all the time, you're lacking energy. I mean, it seems a fairly sensible conclusion to come to, doesn't it? It doesn't seem too far off the mark, really. If you're tired, must be lacking in energy. So what happened is I was living with my very great friend in Spain at the time, and she was particularly puzzled by how I was, and she got the bit between her teeth and started doing research, and she didn't stop. She carried on researching all night until the following morning. She woke me up with great excitement to say, I know what it is, I know what's going on. It's electrosensitivity. And I had absolutely no idea what she was talking about at the time. And what I have come to realise, having integrated what she said, is that rather than being someone that was lacking energy, my problem was exactly the opposite. The issue that I had was that I very easily accumulated energy, and when I accumulate it beyond a certain point, I then become overcharged. And when I'm overcharged, that is when I collapse. So this is what used to happen to me. I don't collapse anymore. I can't even remember the last time I collapsed. It must be years ago. Very grateful for the fact that this doesn't happen to me anymore. But there are moments it gets close. So it's something I have to be aware of and cautious of. So let's broaden this right out to a universal subject now. What I'm sharing with you as follows. In a sense, there's two kinds of people in the world. Now, I really rebel against speaking in that way, but this is really appropriate for when it comes to humans and energy. There are people like me who are energy accumulators, and in fact I'm more so, I'm actually what I would call a fast accumulator. In other words, I accumulate energy very quickly, so I need to have strategies to actually deal with releasing it, and if I don't, then I collapse. So it's my strategies that keeps me healthy and okay, and if I was to not make use of them, I would not be able to function. So that's one kind of person, people who accumulate energy. There's the other kind. What the other kind do is they actually are the opposite. They tend to get truly and genuinely energy depleted, and what I would label these are seekers of energy. So you've got accumulators of energy like me, you've got seekers of energy like other people. Now, there is a term which is used, and I remember when I first came across this, I thought, I just don't like this, it's too simplistic. Well, tough, I might not like it, but it's really appropriate, so here we go. The terms are extrovert and introvert. So introverts need to spend time on their own. And one of the reasons for that is because when they have time on their own, it enables them to become calm and peaceful, and they feel really good. Now, extroverts, on the other hand, they need to be with people. And in fact, the need is so great that if they are not able to be with people, imagine how difficult this has been for some people, and still is for some people, during the years of what we call lockdown. I prefer to call it lock up. But it doesn't matter what you call it, people being locked down, isolation, those who are isolated, who are actually seekers of energy, what a huge problem it is for them, because they genuinely can't get enough of what they require. Now, when we take the extrovert nature to its extreme and it becomes pathological, people then slap a label on this and call it narcissism. So ultimately, narcissism is rather like, it's like the opposite extreme for me. I'm a fast accumulator of energy. A narcissist effectively is someone who is so desperately needing of other people's energy that they literally cannot cope without it, and this tends to cause all the behaviours of narcissists, which can be very pathological, as we know. So let's just take this a little bit further. I do love it when I get people communicating with me about subjects of interest. So this was all a conversation that we had, me and a very good friend, and she was aware that when I spoke about my situation with energy, being a fast accumulator of energy, she realised this applied to her too, and so she gives her own insights here. So I want to share this with you. So partway through the message it says, "This is what my anxiety was. It was a coping mechanism, a way of discharging the excess energy through rushes of panic, which caused the body to shake until it could finally calm down, and then I would feel exhausted. I overgive with people. I never realised this until really recently, and that is why teaching depleted me so much." So this is another facet and aspect about the whole subject, which I want to get into as well, which is overgiving. Now, if a person is, like myself, a fast accumulator of energy, then when things are working well and things are well balanced, what it means to say is that I'm able to give to other people, and other people find this highly desirable. I do actually know someone who finds this so highly desirable, he will go to the most extreme lengths to spend time with me, but unfortunately, what he hasn't yet learned to do is to exert some self-control. Because of course you can imagine if you are a fast accumulator of energy and you're around someone who is severely extrovert and really desperately needing other people's energy, there's something that could happen. If that person was at all greedy, then they could just start sucking and sucking and sucking your energy, and then the next thing you know, you could really be in trouble. So that's another aspect. It's quite a complicated subject, isn't it? It's not completely straightforward, this one. So that is certainly something I've experienced. So I want to touch on this subject because the person that I was sharing that message with is a shamanic practitioner, as am I. So the reason why I was able to do these universal soul retrievals for so many years with so many people all over the world was because as a fast accumulator of energy, it meant that I was able to productively make use of the excess. And this is something that my friend goes on to say. She is aware of the fact that she has the capability to harness massive amounts of energy. And indeed, so do I. So here's another little, I want to give you a diagnostic test now. If you're at all in doubt about what you are in this respect, are you an energy accumulator or are you a seeker of energy? Those are the terms I like to use. This is the way to do it. Simply ask yourself how you feel about being in the company of a cat and then being in the company of a dog. Now, I'm on the extreme end of the spectrum, fast accumulator of energy. I automatically and instinctively step away from dogs, and I specifically do not like to be touched by a dog, and the worst thing I can imagine is for a dog to lick my face. Now that sounds totally weird. Well, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. On the other hand, if you were to ask me how I feel about a cat, yeah, wonderful. And if a cat was to come up to me, I'd love to stroke the cat, look at the cat, speak to the cat, give the cat attention and all the rest of it. The thing about cats and dogs is they are very different, and do look at the film I made about cats and dogs. I'm particularly proud of that film. Here's the point. Cats naturally absorb other people's energy. Dogs naturally give energy out. So if you are an extrovert, and if you're a highly extroverted person, the best thing you could possibly do is to have a dog, make friends for it for the duration of the dog's life, because that dog will automatically, naturally and effortlessly give you energy. And this is why so many people got dogs during lockdowns, because on a totally instinctive level, way beyond their ability to vocalize in words, they were desperate for energy. They couldn't go out and meet people. They bought dogs. The price of dogs in this country rose to astronomical levels, and the dogs supplied the energetic needs of these people who could no longer socialize with people. It's that big a deal. So that's it. So if you love dogs, you're naturally an energy seeker. If you love cats, you're naturally an energy accumulator. It's a really useful thing to know, isn't it? And all the people that I know, I think about my daughter with her 2 cats, exactly the same as me. And I think about my friends who've got dogs, yeah, exactly the opposite from me. It's such an interesting subject, isn't it? It's something that really fascinates me, human energy. Now, here's the mistake that we could all make at this point. It would be so easy to go into judgment, wouldn't it? And say, oh, well, you know, these people running around looking for other people's energy, that's bad. And these people giving out their energy, that's good. Absolutely not. That's not the way to see it. The way to see it is to understand that, like everything in this wonderful human existence of ours, we have these polarities. And when the polarities meet in a helpful way, it's really wonderful. And I can think about one particular relationship I was with, clearly an extrovert, and myself clearly much more on the introverted side of the spectrum. And when the two of us got together, it really was a match made in heaven. It was wonderful. And it worked so fluidly and beautifully and effortlessly. And here's the important distinction to make. The person I'm speaking about now, she was not greedy. She would take as much energy that I was willing to give and no more. And that was absolutely fine. So if you are an accumulator of energy, especially fast accumulator of energy, it's very important to be careful about who you hang out with, and also really important how long you hang out with them. And I want to make this subject. Phone calls. Some people will phone people up and they will talk at them. And when they're doing that, actually what they're doing is they're doing something else at the same time. They're actually drawing the person's energy. So it can actually happen remotely through the phone, particularly. That is something that is very well known. So in a situation like that, it's really important to realize that if you're having a phone call with someone and energetically you feel like, I've enjoyed this call, but I've had enough now. It might be really tempting to say to yourself, oh, well, it would be impolite. I'll have to carry on this little call as long as they need me to. No, you need to be really firm about this and look after yourself. Be unconditional with yourself. When you reach the point where you say to yourself, no, that's enough now, you want to find a polite way of saying, it's time for me to go now. And I'll tell you what these people will do if they really are desperate energy seekers. They will completely ignore that and carry on talking at you, meanwhile sucking on your energy. So as soon as that happens, what you need to do is to be really clear. It's time for me to go now. Goodbye. Put the phone down. It's important to love and nurture and respect yourself in your human interactions. So here's a particular thing that happens with me. I love being with groups, but when I was doing my shamanic training, I quickly became aware of the fact that what I was doing is whenever someone was speaking, I was taking on their energy, and it was building up, and I would very easily feel like overcharge. And so I discovered a strategy that works really well for me in meetings and group situations and trainings. I would write copious notes. I would write and write and write. And when I was writing my notes, what was happening is the energy that was received from that person as they were speaking, which is building up to me to cause me to really feel like, whoa, dangerous, overload level. Because I'm writing, it passes straight through and out. So it's a really puzzling thing, because the person who's speaking, what they are doing is they are expressing themselves, but they're drawing upon the energy. It's a fascinating subject, isn't it? So I feel that my energy levels are telling me I need to stop now. That's really cool, isn't it? This is one of the reasons I do enjoy making films. It does really help me when I reach energy overcharge. There are other points I'd like to make, but my feeling is I'm going to make that for a part 2. So this is the end of part 1 of what I'm calling the Rayburn sessions. This is my dearly beloved Rayburn behind me. Keeps the whole house warm 24/7. It's a great gift, human source of energy in the form of heat. Okay, all the love to you, and thank you very much. Cheers.